Uniqueness is your superpower. After a successful but unfulfilling career in tech, I set off to uncover what makes people successful and satisfied. I discovered the systems of astrology and human design, studied and applied them for years, and exchanged my 9-to-5 for the entrepreneur's adventure. Now I share insight from the cosmic cutting edge. This podcast is for ambitious people ready to use their unique genius to create wealth, positive impact, and personal fulfillment. We'll talk personal branding, business, and leadership. Time to be courageous and seen. Let's reach for the stars. Hello, and welcome back to the Cosmic Queen podcast. I am so excited for myself, for Kate, and for you because we have an incredible podcast topic today. It is going to be dynamic. It is going to be super interesting and maybe even controversial. Oh my God, evil laugh. Yes, So our topic today, I want to introduce our topic really briefly, then let Kate introduce herself, and then we're going to get into it. So the topic is, are astrology lovers narcissists? We're going to find out. We're going to talk about it. Let's see what comes through. This was all spawned by a particular comment in a particular study. But before we get into that context, hello, if you are new to me, I am Rachel. We're also on TikTok Live. Oh my gosh, we've got a bunch of people on TikTok Live. Hi, everyone. This is my first TikTok Live. So, it's all happening in real time. We're doing a podcast too. This topic of are astrology lovers narcissists is so it's really lit a fire in me. And I want to talk about, we're going to talk about all the sides, all the studies. It's going to be really juicy. We're going to go for about an hour. It's going to be really good. And I am an astrologer. So I am an astrologer, I am a human design expert, and I am a life and business coach. So just so you know a little bit about the context of who I am and who I support, I work with ambitious entrepreneurs. I work with people on identity. And so a lot of my work is around helping people to uncover their authentic identity and also helping people to then translate that into a personal brand, into a business that they love. And so a big part of my work is confidence. So I'm super interested in this topic of narcissism versus confidence and like, what is the difference in all those things? And I had to invite, once I got this idea from this comment that someone left, I think they were trying to troll me, but it didn't work. I got inspired. I invited Kate to come and have this conversation. We've done a lot of research. We have receipts and we have tea on the kind of psychology, personality disorder whole arena. So we're going to get into it. But first, Kate, would you introduce yourself? I know that people on TikTok can't see you, but you can hear her. So yes.
Hi, I'm Kate Smith. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Rachel. I am a counselor and a hypnotherapist, and I come from a spiritual and holistic perspective. So I have studied traditional psychology. I did my master's in psychology, and for me, it didn't feel like it encompassed the whole of our being. And so that's what led me down the sort of more spiritual, holistic path, and how I incorporate things like astrology into my practice. I primarily work with people with chronic illness because that's my background and that's my research topic. But I work with anyone who feels called to work on themselves if they have a particular area of their life that they need help with, or they want some sort of counselling on how to be their best self, then I'm your girl. And I'm so excited about this topic because it actually really encompasses why I went down the route I did, rather than go down the traditional psychology route. So I'm sure we'll get into that, but yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. We've just been on fire. We had a whole call like prepping for today. We've been like I can't wait to talk about it. So, and should we share really quick before we dive into the context of what led us to this and the study that we're going to break down? Like, what is our astrology? Because it might be interesting for people listening to us to think about that and about how we are presenting ourselves, expressing ourselves in this debate. So my astrology is, I am a Libra sun. I know I'm going between cameras. It's so fun. I am a Libra sun, Gemini moon, Pisces rising 0 degrees, and I have a Sagittarius midheaven, which in my system of archetypes is the guide. So I like to explore, learn a lot of things, and then bring back the gems to help people with uncovering their truth. And your astrology, do you want to share?
Yeah, sure. I am a Cancer Sun, Cancer Moon, Pisces rising, and I did know my midheaven, but I can't remember it off the top of my head.
I should have looked it up for you. It's probably Sag, because if we're both Pisces rising, isn't that interesting? Where, yeah, it's probably going to be Sag. It depends. I love this. Okay, so let's set some context first. We've got 9 people on TikTok live. This is so fun. I love it. Hello, shout out to everyone. So the context for why we're having this debate and why we're having this discussion, I want to read you this comment. I posted a video about, astrology helping people to be more confident and to be more of themselves. And it kind of went a little viral on Instagram. And then I got this comment underneath it. It says, do you know there was a study released that researched which character trait is most connected with people that believe in astrology? The result was narcissism. And I'm sure they felt like that was like a really big mic drop. And they were like, baba, hello. And I said, okay, challenge accepted. Like, I was curious, first of all, whether this was even legit, whether there was actually a study, because people say that all the time. Oh, studies say, like everyone, every white man with a podcast is an expert, right? And like, that's just how it goes. And so I was a little suspect, but we found there is indeed a study,
You
and
did.
we want to break that down. So we looked at this study, and there are a few things we're going to go through today. So for those of you who like a plan of the conversation, here's what we're going to cover. So we're going to start off talking about our opinions, because I think it's nice to just start off with like, where's our hypothesis first and our opinion on this. Then and I'm setting the stage, talking about this comment. Then I want to dive into the breakdown of the study. We're going to take it apart a little bit and understand what exactly the study says. And does this study have integrity, in the psychology community? Then we're going to look at, okay, let's talk about, at that point, people who love astrology and what we know about people who love astrology. Being people who work in this industry, I've been an astrologer and working with astrology for 5 years. I've had hundreds and hundreds of people through my practice. And so I have a few thoughts about what I've observed about those people. That's anecdotal evidence, but it matters. And I want to share it with you too. And then we're going to get into some technical stuff, some receipts, and some tea about the psychology community, specifically DSM 5 and the definition of narcissism. What is it really? I'm guessing that a lot of you watching probably have your own opinion, and I would love it for you to put it in the chat. What do you think is the definition of narcissism? Like, if you could try and write it in one sentence, what would it be? I would love to hear your thoughts. And also, if you're watching this later on YouTube or whatever podcast platform, like, please let us know, what do you think narcissism really is? Because that is a big question that we're going to be answering today. Okay. So let's talk about our opinion first of all. Like, when we first heard this question, what were your thoughts? Like, what did you think, Kate? What was your kind of knee-jerk opinion and reaction?
Well, I mean, where do I start? I feel like these sorts of comments are just like you said, people sort of take things out of context, drop it into a conversation, and are like, this is fact, this is the truth, this is what they found. And quite frankly, having done my master's in psychology and done a lot of research and a lot of reading of journals, I know that you can virtually always find your opinion validated by a study somewhere.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So I think I was surprised at first, and I thought, well, that's not my experience at all. Anybody that I've met in this sort of astrology community has been really kind and compassionate and very into community, and those are not narcissistic traits at all. I think the other thing that's really important to point out is this study did look into personality traits, not narcissistic personality disorder. And I think a lot of people get those mixed up. So everybody has a little bit of narcissism in them. It's part of our, makeup as humans. It's just where on that scale do you end up?
And I learned a lot about that I didn't know. So that was really fascinating. Yeah. So you're going to take us through some of that and the scale of narcissism, and also understanding, I didn't realize there's such a thing as healthy narcissism versus unhealthy narcissism. So we're all in school today. It's the school of life. We're all learning. So I can't wait to hear more about that from you later.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really important when looking at the scale that they used. Some of the questions I really sort of took issue with, because I was like, wait a minute, as a counselor, a lot of these things are things that we work towards our clients feeling, like feeling able to take a compliment without being embarrassed, feeling like you have leadership skills, feeling like you have value. They are all good things in terms of mental health and improving somebody's self-image, self-awareness, self-esteem. And so yeah, that's when I sort of did a little bit of a deep dive into healthy versus unhealthy narcissism. And healthy narcissism is controversial, but a lot of things in psychology and other areas of study are, because everybody's opinion, right?
It's Aries season, by the way. Like, we love being a little controversial. We love it, and we're gonna embrace it, like Mercury retrograde or not. It's gonna be good. Okay, good. So your initial hypothesis was like, there's no way, like, people who in that you've met through a mutual love of astrology, are not narcissists in the way that you think about narcissism. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
yeah, my initial thought, like, initially I was like, how dare they, like, rage, like, there's no way, and all that kind of stuff. And I think it was really interesting because I was like, this comment is from someone who, like, hates astrology, probably doesn't understand it, and I doubted whether there was really a study anyway. And so I was like very dismissive of it. But after diving into it a little bit more, I think understand, like, the nuance and the spectrum of what we're talking about a lot more. And I absolutely, I don't believe that people who are astrology lovers are inherently narcissistic or have narcissist personality disorder, but it's there's more to it than that. And I also developed, which kind of surprised me a little bit in this research, I developed even more empathy for people who truly do have narcissistic personality disorder, because there's a reason that they have it. And it's tough and it's sad. And so we will talk about that as well. So, okay, good. So initial hypotheses there. Now let's get into a breakdown of this study. Let's talk about this study. So, do you want to introduce it, or should I introduce kind of what the study's called, where it was done, like any of that? Do you want to go ahead?
No, I'm happy to. So it was a study done in 2022 in Sweden. And it's called "Even the Stars Think That I Am Superior: Personality, Intelligence, and Belief in Astrology."
That's the title for a scientific study.
They might have been going for some controversy too there, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it was a survey study. And so they looked into the dark triad, which is 3 sort of dark or bad personality traits. So
I'd never heard of the dark triad before. Do you want to just remind us what the dark triad is?
Sure. So it's narcissism, Machiavellism, if I can say that, and psychopathy. And it's not something that's traditionally used in personality trait testing. It's a relatively new concept. So originally we would use the big 5 personality traits, which, gosh, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but it's like
I took notes.
agreeableness. Oh gosh,
Oh,
let's see.
you told me. Okay, the big 5 personality traits: neuroticism, extroversion, agreeableness, openness, and conscientiousness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what would usually be used as far as my experience in looking into studies and things like that. This was really interesting for me. It's not something that I'd come across before either. And so I did a little bit of sort of digging into it, and we'll talk a bit more about how they measure that later. Yeah. But they basically did this. If I'm looking over to the side, it's because I've got the study here.
No, I love it. We've got all the receipts, baby. Like, tell us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to talk about all that, like how the study was run, the limitations of the study, like get into it. Yeah.
So they had 264 participants, which is a reasonable amount, but it was 87% women, and the age span was 25 to 34, which is quite small.
That's a very narrow part of the population, right?
Yes.
And they were also self-selecting, right?
Yes.
So they were not chosen. They decided, ooh, I think I'll do this survey, which I also think, not sure how that might also affect the results. So go ahead.
You absolutely cannot generalize something where it is sort of so biased in terms of the age, the gender, the fact that they weren't chosen at random, like, and they say that at the end of the study.
Yeah, can I read that part? Because I think that's reading really fast. It's in section 4. I wrote this down, 4.1 of the study. I thought this was really important to say. It's under the limitations. It says, in the same vein, we do not know how much participants know about astrology. So they did not measure that. Also, since the vast majority were younger women recruited through social media, the sample is not generalizable to a broader population. Like, to me, that's everything. It's like, okay, like we still wanted to still go into the depth of the study, but immediately I'm like, okay, we cannot draw conclusions about people from this study. They even admit it. They say it themselves. So boom. Yeah.
And if you even look at the belief in astrology inventory that is used to measure, it's wild, honestly.
Wild. Tell us, what was the word they used?
Yeah, they've just not spoken to an astrologer.
I don't think they have any idea what astrology is. Like,
no, they think astrology is horoscopes.
Yes, they think it's horoscopes, and I think they think it's something to do with like the spirit world, because they use the word paranormal many times in the study, and I was so confused. I was like, okay, speaking to spirits as a medium, paranormal ghosts, things like that. To me, that is very different from the system of astrology. It's adjacent, there are a lot of people who do both, a lot of people who are interested in both, but I think it's adjacent, not equal. So, yeah.
So, quoting a study where they're looking into people's paranormal beliefs, you can't compare the two as far as I'm concerned.
It's not the same thing as saying this is astrology. Yeah.
Yeah. And let me just find, there was this the way that the questions are worded is so fascinating. So in this belief in astrology inventory, I think there are 24 questions. And they instead of using astrological terms, they'll say heavenly bodies can have a positive influence.
That could be like angels. Like, I mean, that could be anyone who has any religious beliefs. Like, that could be so many different things. Yeah.
And the way I relate to other people depends on my zodiac sign. So
yeah.
If I were to just take into consideration my sun sign and try and use that to explain how I relate to other people, we would be having issues. Because that's not how astrology works. And so they clearly yeah, whoever put this inventory together doesn't really seem to have a strong understanding of astrology
Yeah.
as a, as a whole. It's
Yeah.
very,
And
very narrow.
And of course, it is possible to have a strong opinion without having a strong understanding. And I think
Yes.
that's a lot of what we see in the verbiage, in the design, in the results and analysis from this study. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And
And I think, comparing someone like you who has such a rich understanding of astrology with somebody who believes in reading their horoscope in the paper once a week,
yeah.
it is, you can't. There's no comparison really.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Very, very different. Yeah. Um, Anything else about the study that jumped out as suspect to you? We can get into the definition of narcissism. Was there anything else?
Well, I think this would lead nicely into the definition of
Okay.
narcissism,
Yeah.
because we were looking at the scale that they used to measure the narcissistic personality trait level in their survey participants.
Yes. So this, I think
Questions.
everything, just to give context, like everything hangs on this because
Yes.
the results that they say they got with the study, the people who conducted the study, was that there's a positive correlation between people who believe in astrology and the, darker personality trait of narcissism. They believe that their study proves that, even though they admit it doesn't really compare to the it doesn't apply to the general population. But therefore, we got to define what is narcissism, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, go. So how do they define it?
So narcissism as a personality trait is, it's more to do with sort of feeling that you are superior, prioritizing your own needs, potentially at the expense of others' feelings, and it can be sort of in different situations that you experience this. In certain situations, you may not have these superiority feelings. Like, for instance, somebody in a work setting may behave very differently to a personal setting.
Yeah.
So it's very fluid. It can depend on the day. It can depend on the mood, and it can fluctuate. Whereas narcissistic personality disorder is a mental health condition,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
spans the entirety of your life. And it's when it sort of starts to, basically, you can have problems in your relationships, cause yourself and others distress. It becomes persistent, and you may sort of end up using maladaptive coping strategies that not only impact yourself but others. And
But this
yeah,
is your
I mean, they're very
definition.
different.
Yeah, yeah. And this is what you're describing here is like a common person's definition of narcissism. This is like a kind of like a widely accepted like street definition. But the definition in this study is different. Should we
Right.
read
I
it?
mean, the
Yeah.
scale, the
Yeah, the
scale that they
scale.
use.
The
Yeah.
scale.
So this is fascinating to me. I actually tried to do a bit more research into the dark triad scale,
Okay.
because I was so surprised by it. And
Yeah.
not only is it quite a short scale, it's only got 9 questions. It's actually reduced from the original scale, which had, I think, 14 questions. So it's an even smaller scale, which
Okay.
generally makes things a little bit less
Yeah.
concrete, let's say.
Yeah. And when we get to that section, sorry to interrupt, when we get to that section where we talk about the DSM and like the official stuff, I want to read, because I've got in DSM 5, it's a 9-point scale, but it's very different from this one.
Yeah,
So
totally different.
yeah, we'll get to that. But first, the study. Yeah.
Just to sort of make a point with that, the DSM 5, that is for the personality disorder. This
Yes.
scale is
Yes.
for the level of narcissistic personality trait you have as a general
right.
person.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
It would be different. But the vast difference is quite interesting, and the questions are really, to me, really fascinating, especially as a counsellor who works with people who are struggling with confidence issues, are struggling with boundaries and healthy relationships. So for for them to sort of come along and have this scale where there are questions such as, I feel embarrassed if somebody compliments me.
Yeah.
So in this situation, if you're normal, if you feel embarrassed, whereas if
Yeah.
you're not embarrassed by
According to
compliments,
this.
that gives you a point to make you, you know, more narcissistic, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
Or
that's according to the scale that this study is using,
correct.
which was so surprising to us. Like I was like,
So surprising.
what? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah,
Yeah, and there are questions like, people say I have leadership abilities.
yeah. Like,
Like
so
some
if
saying
it's
you
a
have
yes,
leadership, yeah,
yeah,
if you
then
say
you're a
yes,
you
that's
have
again a
narcissism.
point towards narcissism.
Can we go through all
Or if,
nine? I kind of want to go through all nine.
sure, let me find it because I
Yeah.
do have it.
For the Virgos in the audience, I want us to go through all nine and like really just make it super clear. Like this is what they based the study on. If you answered these questions or questions in the survey, you know, that were positive based on this 9-point narcissism scale, then you have narcissism or
Yeah,
are narcissistic or whatever the proper terminology is.
yeah.
Yeah, should we go I
And
want to,
I
yeah.
cracked this out the other day when I was having my hair done because I was like, so do you guys want to see if you're narcissistic or not? And they were really surprised as well.
Yeah.
So number one, people see me as a natural leader.
Mhm.
Number two, I hate being the center of attention.
Yeah. This is wild. So, I mean, according to number one, I'm a narcissist. People do see me as a natural leader. I see myself that way as well. Yeah. And then number two, what was it again?
I hate being the center of attention.
And it's the reverse of that.
It
So
is.
if you enjoy being the center of attention, you're a narcissist.
Right.
For me, yeah, sometimes I do enjoy being I mean, my whole work is helping people build personal brands, which by nature is helping them be the center of attention in their career. And so yes, according to this definition, just using myself as a guinea pig, for sure I'm a narcissist, according to this.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one because I would have said previously, yes, I hate being the center of attention, but I have been working on my confidence for a really long time. And
Yeah.
now I would say I'm neutral. So how would I
Okay.
answer this question?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
hate it anymore.
Yeah, and also it's like in what context, right? Like when I'm walking down the street, no, I don't want everyone looking at me. I don't want paparazzi in my face. Like who wants that? You know, or maybe some
Yeah.
people do, but not me. But like when I'm presenting my work on stage, you know, or selling a book or whatever. Yes, I want the eyeballs. Like it
Yeah,
helps me get my message out. Why not? Yeah.
absolutely. And I think it, again, it's like, does that mean that all of our actors and actresses are
Narcissist.
narcissistic? No, because you actually talk, you know, you see them on talk shows and they say they're actually quite shy.
Right.
They
Yeah.
just love what they do,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
they're
I
still
mean,
being
but
the center of attention.
yeah, by this definition, anyone who is a performer, anyone who is a theater kid, me, you know, anyone who is a performer of any kind is a narcissist. And to me, I'm like, that just seems extreme. So anyway, we're only on number two. Okay, what's number
Well, we've
three?
got somebody else joining us who likes to be the
Yeah,
center
sorry,
of
we have,
attention a
well,
little
speaking of liking to be the center of attention,
bit.
Artemis, yes, the kitty cat.
Yeah, so number three is probably the only one that I can see really fitting with narcissism, right?
Okay, yeah.
Many group activities tend to be dull without me. Like,
To me, I'm like, this is just self-awareness. Like, but yeah, it's, you know, but okay, so if you are someone who is a natural performer, a comedian, a class clown type of personality, does that mean that, yeah, just because you know that you have a skill of livening up group activities, that makes you a narcissist? I don't know.
yeah.
It's a interesting, it's such a strict definition. I think it's really interesting, but yeah, yeah.
And then the next one, I know that I'm special because everyone keeps telling me so.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think about this one?
This is a really interesting one, actually,
Yeah.
because they do talk a little bit about this in the study because
Okay.
of the age of the women who participated. They talk about the fact that because they're millennials,
Yes.
um, they were brought up in a generation where they were constantly being told they're special.
Yes, I've heard
So
this
that might have,
criticism of millennials, like being a millennial myself. I've heard this criticism before. And yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
well, so let me just read what they say. Furthermore, cultural aspects of millennials may emphasize the uniqueness of individuals, which might lead to a more egocentric view of the world and thus relate to narcissistic traits.
Okay. So if
So
people tell you you're special, you're going to be egocentric.
apparently,
It's interesting. I feel like there's a correlation, but not a causality. Like as we used to say in speech and debate, there's correlation, not causality. And I feel like, yeah, of course, I'm sure there are people who were, who grow up to be spoiled brats, who, their parents told them they could do no wrong. There's no consequences. You're a special snowflake, blah, blah, blah. All those words they used to use for millennials who then have overactive egos and could potentially develop narcissistic personality disorder. That is part of but I also think that telling someone they're special, I just don't see that as a problem. Like I it's really interesting. It depends on what the context is and why you're telling them that. Like in my
yeah,
this is just
I
my
think that's
opinion. This is
it's
just
the context. It
it's the
really, really is.
yeah, like
Because
mhm,
I mean, using myself as an example, right? I was an extraordinarily shy child.
mm,
Um, I went through some fairly big traumas when I was 8, and I just completely shut down.
mm,
And so, as a sort of way to try and boost my confidence and bring me out of my shell, I was encouraged to go into drama club. I was told that, but my parents would tell me that I was special and that I was unique and that they were so proud of me no matter what and everything. And I think that was vital for me
yeah.
in being who I am now, like instead of a complete introvert who wouldn't say boo to a goose.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um, but if you have somebody who's already got an abundance of confidence and you just keep feeding that ego, I can see how that might go in
yeah.
a different direction.
Yeah, it seems like it's a spectrum. Like something that just popped into my head. And shout out to those on TikTok Live. I see someone said, "My Virgo midheaven thanks you for the list and analysis." Yay! So my a thought just popped up. This study, another study, I don't know what it's called, but where they took like American school children and they had two classes, and they told one class that they were like below average in abilities, and they
Mhm.
the semester taught everything the same exact way, and they had low test scores, like lower than average. Then they took
Yes.
the other classroom, right? Everyone's heard of this. And they took the other classroom, told them they were exceptional, they were special, they were like top in the school, they were gifted young
Mm.
people, and they taught them exactly the same information exactly the same way, and they got like super high scores at the end of the semester.
Yeah.
And that proved that, like, positive versus negative, like context setting about who someone is and their abilities
Mhm.
matters, and it changes
Absolutely.
someone's performance and it changes their results. So like
Yeah.
as a coach, it's like, ooh, when I hear this, that like, oh no, that means you're a narcissist, it worries me, because I would worry that someone would see this list from this study of what narcissism is, and then they would just think, well, I need to look down on myself, and that's how I can be normal, instead of
Mhm.
being proud of yourself, seeing yourself as worthy, special, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So,
And there's a study that I found that was a qualitative study. So the person, she spoke to various different people who were into astrology,
mhm,
more in the sense of how we would think of astrology, right?
mhm,
And they basically found that but the more into astrology that they got, the more sort of they would explore their personalities, their strengths and their weaknesses, how that allows them to relate to other people. And it also made them less judgmental of other people when they made mistakes or when they didn't behave in the way that they would hope they would.
Definitely.
And so that's where it's really sort of, you know, the two studies are showing very different things.
Oh, interesting. Okay, let's keep going with the list, because I definitely want to get into that topic of empathy and all that stuff as well after this, but let's keep going on the list. Yeah.
So I think this is my favorite one, 5. I like to get acquainted with important people.
Wait, say that again. So this is number 5.
5.
Yeah.
I like to get acquainted with important people.
As someone who comes from a corporate background, this is what they tell you to do. Like,
yeah, literally. And you know, we haven't talked about this, but it's really funny. You know, we met and then found out later that we sort of missed each other by a couple of years at the same company doing the same job.
Yes, management consultants.
Yeah. And it's exactly that. Like, it's literally, you're told this is how you will be successful in life, is you sort of meet other important people. And that's not in a sense of you're going to use them, it's you learn from them, you see how they live their life and become successful. You know, they might introduce you to somebody because they value you and they think you will be able to help that other person. Like, it builds this network, it builds this community, which is sort of the antithesis of narcissism for me, is this, you know, isolated individual who doesn't care about anybody else but themselves. You know, if you're building this network and part of that is sort of finding important people, whatever that means to you, how is that anything but a good thing?
It's crazy. It's bizarre. It's very weird to me. So if we listen to this, that means that we should, in order to not be narcissistic, we should not want to get acquainted with important people.
Yeah.
Like, how are you, like, as an ambitious person or a creative person who wants to get your art, you know, seen to support people in the world, to support yourself and your family, what does that say? It's just like, just stay at home. Just stay home. Don't meet anyone. Don't try to connect. You know, that's it. Yeah.
Works for sort of so many areas of life as well. I think about when I was doing my master's, like, part of what helped me was getting to know certain professors in certain areas that I was interested in. Because, you know, for instance, I wanted to do a very specific topic for my dissertation. And I didn't know when I started my master's that they would generally put you on an existing project and you would help work towards that as part of your thesis. I wanted to do my own study. And it was only because I reached out to different people in the departments, I got to know them and talked to them about what I was interested in, that I was allowed to do that. So if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been able to do this research, which was vital to me.
Yeah.
Also helps other people, because I found out about all of these links between chronic illness and trauma and the things that help. Like, that wouldn't exist if I hadn't sought out these important people within my department.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. It almost feels like, you know, the strategy from listening to this list is to, like, keep your head down, stay quiet, and hope, or don't even hope that someone notices you, just hope that it all turns out okay.
Yeah, we joked about this, didn't we? It was very British.
Yes, okay, you said it. Ha, she said it now. But yes, like, after, okay, being an American living in England, yeah, like, I feel like somehow narcissism seems like a lot of things that are celebrated in America, the kind of can-do attitude, the, like, let's make it happen, the, like, I can do anything, I am unique and special, that kind of thing is very American. And yeah, it's like British. And you know what's funny? Okay, a little bit of history here. If I can find the exact, let me find the exact, I have something that talks about, I can't look at my phone because I took like a million screenshots of all the research that I did. So who actually coined the term narcissism? I'm trying to find it really quickly here. It was in 1898. I'm trying to find this exact, and it was, of course, a British man. And I was like, of course, like this is funny, actually kind of just thinking about the cultural differences, and I'm just trying to find the exact name for, oh, look, now we've got a doggy here as well. Oh, sorry, TikTok Live. I wish you could see what we're looking at, but you'll see it when the podcast comes out. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Okay, I have way too many. Well, is this it? Yeah, okay. So British essayist and physician Havelock Ellis is the one who first identified narcissism as a mental disorder in 1898. And then we can get into the definition later. But I thought that was kind of funny. I mean, it kind of makes sense because apologizing is such a deeply entrenched part of British culture.
And the idea that you should be embarrassed if
To be
someone compliments
embarrassed.
you. I think that's the next one. I feel embarrassed if someone compliments me. It's a reverse one. So
British. Yeah, not just British, lots of other cultures as
yeah.
well, have a similar cultural, stigma about being
Mhm.
proud of yourself. Yeah, publicly
Yeah.
proud of yourself. It's like, no, 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 that's not okay. Yeah.
And again, that's something I really work on with people, because, for instance, I work with people who have chronic illness, and
Yeah.
that can really, really chip away at your confidence, and you
Oh,
can
yeah.
feel like you're losing so many aspects of yourself, so many things that you had worked for, you dreamed of.
Mhm.
So, you've got to hold on to what you can sometimes. And if somebody's complimenting you because your skin looks amazing, like, take it.
Take it.
Do you
Take
know what I
it.
mean? Like, you've got to hold on to these positive things sometimes. Otherwise,
Mhm.
life can get you down.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so I take issue with that one massively.
Yeah, I fully agree. That was number 6. Yeah, I feel embarrassed if
Yes.
someone compliments me. So the reverse, if you don't feel embarrassed, you're a narcissist.
Mm.
Uh, okay, number 7. What's number 7?
Number 7, I have been compared to famous people.
Okay, but first of all, like, who would you be compared to if not famous people? Like, if someone is like, oh, you remind me of, it's not going
Yeah.
to be someone's like grandma. Like, it's going to be a famous, someone that everyone knows.
And also, it's got nothing to do with what other people
Yes.
say.
Yes, that's the other thing that bothered me about this list is a lot of this is about what other people say about you.
Yeah.
So what other people say about you is your fault somehow, and it
Or
shows that you
somehow
have a
influences your
personality disorder.
personality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Craziness.
If anyone's watching the video, you can see me making a face over here. Okay.
It's like, what?
What? I know. What are they talking about? Okay. This is hilarious. Yeah. So by the way, little side note, is there a famous person that you hear about, like with you? Is there anyone?
Yeah, so I get compared to Kate Winslet a lot.
Yes, I love Kate. You love
And
Kate. Mhm.
I don't know if this is because I'm British and called Kate.
And called Kate.
Because I don't see it. But interestingly, even my parents were watching The Holiday and they were like, oh my gosh, you're so like her. And I was like, do you mean in like the sense of she is a bit pathetic when she's obsessed with this
No.
who is like with somebody else? Or do you mean they were like, no, 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 you look like her. And I was like,
No.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you do look like her a little bit. And I feel like you like how she's kind of like cottage core in that I feel like you have an essence of like loving like a good cup of tea, a good book.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Cozy life. Yeah,
Yeah. I love that movie.
100%. How about you?
Yeah. So when I first moved to England, I was, younger, slimmer, and and my hair was shorter and darker, and everyone compared me to Corinne Bailey Rae. Do you know the singer?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and she was
I
really
can
big
see
at the
that
time,
actually.
and
Yeah.
people thought I was her. Like they would photograph me and stuff on the street, and I'd just be like, yeah, and I'm like, I'm not even British. Like, do you not know she's British? But it was funny. And then when I went to Asia, when I went to China specifically, everyone said Mariah Carey, which cracked me up. My hair was straight at that time and it was a little more golden, but they're like Mariah Carey, Mariah Carey, and I was like, really? Okay, I'll take it.
I'll
Sure.
take it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to do the high notes. But yeah, we love Mariah. And I think that's pretty much it. I don't think I get other, trying to think. No, I don't think I get any other famous people at the moment.
When I was a bit slimmer, I used to get the girl from Killing Eve,
I've not
Jodie.
Okay, no, I've not seen that one. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I used to get that as well. And again, I was like, I'll take it. I don't see
Yeah,
it, but I'll take
I guess
it.
I guess that just means we're narcissists. So
Absolutely.
we're really ranking high on this scale. Okay, so we've got two more on this list. This is the narcissist. For those of you joining now on TikTok, this is the list, the scale for narcissism in the Swedish study that concluded that people who are into astrology are narcissists, and we think it's hilarious. So what's number 8 and number 9?
Number 8 is another reverse one. So it's I am an average person.
I don't know what that means. Like, what does that mean? So, okay,
Exactly.
yeah, what
Like
do you think about this? Mm,
I am not an average person, and I'll tell you why I'm not an average person.
okay, tell me.
I have had a very unusual life.
Hmm.
I had chronic illness since I was 16. I've been bedbound. I've had to travel internationally to have medical treatment. It's prevented me from doing so many things in my life, but also allowed me opportunities to experience things that I otherwise probably wouldn't have. I would have gone down a very different path. And
Mm.
altogether, I just think it makes me quite unusual. And I feel unusual. And that used to make me feel self-conscious, but now I'm like sort of leaning into it.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm. Embracing what is, right?
yeah,
It is what it is. Yeah, I love that. Slay. I am, I agree. I don't believe I'm an average person, and I've never felt that way. So call me narcissistic, but even when I was a kid, I always felt like I was meant to be a performer. I was meant to be seen, famous, whatever the word is. I used to write songs. I used to want to write a book. I loved being on stage. I loved, doing stuff, leading group projects. And I kind of always had this sense, but I know I'm not an average person because I've, exactly as you said, done non-average things.
yeah.
But I also have this feeling that inside, I am not an average person either, because I think I have an extraordinary amount of courage. I run headfirst into a lot of things that a lot of people would be very scared to do. And
Mm.
I do think that that is not average, and that is kind of unusual. Um, call me a narcissist.
So my dog is whining, so I'm just gonna let
Oh,
him out
yeah, go ahead and let him out. Go ahead and let him
of the room. I will
out.
be
I'll do
my
number 9. So number 9 on this list is, and this one I think gives Kate and I a lot of rage when we look at this, especially as we said, we are people who support people with building their confidence. So number 9 on this list of narcissism, scale traits is I insist on getting the respect I deserve. So if you do that, if you are someone who insists on getting the respect you deserve, you are a narcissist. Let's
yeah.
unpack that one.
I mean, this is so problematic.
Yeah, it's so
So problematic. I mean,
problematic. Mhm.
respect is so fundamental. I can see what they were trying to say here, like,
Yeah.
you should
Mhm.
respect me, like, because I'm better than everybody else. But that's not what the question is.
Mm-mm.
The
Yeah, it doesn't
question
say
is,
because I think I'm superior to everyone. It doesn't say that. It's
no,
just I insist on getting the respect I deserve. And I
yes.
just feel like that is a fundamental human right, like to have dignity and to be respected. But,
And I think one of the things we were discussing it before is that people who sort of get into astrology often are also into personal development, spirituality, working on themselves, have, getting more self-awareness. And like the more you go down that route, the more you know that you need to have healthy boundaries.
yeah,
Know that if somebody's not respecting you, you don't need to have them in your life, or you can limit your sort of interactions with them. And these are all really healthy things for
yeah.
self-esteem and for your mental health.
Mhm.
So this is it's for me is a really problematic one, because you absolutely should insist on getting the respect you deserve,
Yeah.
but you should also respect others.
Yes. And I think that is a great like transition point to kind of talking about, Yeah, astrology, personal development, like, what does this mean? Because, the what they should have said on this scale is that you do all this at the disadvantage of other people, right?
Correct.
Because because you think you are superior. So just now when I said I don't believe I'm average because of XYZ, at no point in there, and truly this is in my heart, you can believe me or not, I do not believe any of those things makes me superior. So like me wanting to lead groups, me wanting to write a book, me feeling like I have a lot of extra courage, and maybe even recklessness compared to some other people. At no point am I assigning a morality to that in my head. I'm just like, that's just how I am. And there
Yeah.
are shadow sides to that. There are disadvantages and issues that that creates. Like I have a high risk, profile. And yeah, that can, I mean, it gives my partner a heart attack sometimes. Because he has a low risk profile, So yeah, there's a spectrum, but I think that to be a narcissist, to translate that into to narcissism is you're doing all these things that would be naturally kind of confident things to do at the expense of other people. So you're
Right.
actively like hurting other people. You don't believe they deserve the same respect, dignity, opportunities, praise, whatever that you
Yeah.
do. And I just don't believe that people who are into astrology feel that way.
No. And I think this is where the healthy versus unhealthy
Yeah.
narcissism comes in.
Yes.
Um,
He does.
and I
Mhm.
found this really interesting table. I think it was on like Psych Central or something like that,
Okay.
where they were giving examples of healthy versus unhealthy narcissism.
Hmm.
And my favorite is you advocate for yourself in romantic and non-romantic relationships whilst being considerate of another person's needs. That's healthy narcissism.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you have the confidence to know that you sort of deserve respect, you deserve to be treated with kindness and dignity, but
Yes.
you know that the other person also has that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the unhealthy narcissism would be you gaslight or manipulate your partner into getting your needs met. Find it
Yeah.
difficult to empathize with how they feel.
Mm. That is such that I love this table that you have. And if we share clips of this, I'll try and like show it as well. But this is so important because I think that people sometimes do hear, messaging from the personal development crowd, the self-love crowd, the, confidence crowd, and they can take it to the extreme,
Mm.
especially if they have been kind of beat down in the past
Yes.
by their experiences in relationships or their experiences with other people who don't respect them. They can like overcorrect. And so exactly as you said, it's okay to stand up for yourself. In fact, it's kind of required. You need to advocate for your needs, and you can't, it's not mutually exclusive. You can
Mm.
do that at the same time as respecting someone else. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that is the type of person that you often meet in the astrology community because of the work that they've been doing on themselves.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, why do people kind of come to astrology? What do you think? Like, why, like astrology slash personal development? Like, why do people come?
I think it can be a number of things. I think usually it's something is either happening or has happened in their life that has made them realize, hey, this isn't actually working for me.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe I'm not sure what would work for me, so I'm going to do a bit of research. I'm going to look into things. Or they see somebody who's living a certain way and they're like, oh, actually, that looks more like what I want. How do I
Hmm.
get
Yeah.
there? And I think that's for my personal journey, is I got very, very ill. And when I was in my early 20s, I had a relapse, and I basically lost my memory and I couldn't really leave my bed. And
Hmm.
it was very sort of hard because my identity was so wrapped up in my intelligence and my ability to achieve, right?
Yeah.
But that had never made me happy.
Uh,
Never, never. It had made me feel valued. It had made me feel good when I get the praise, but it was like very passing.
Mm.
So I really had an awful lot of time in bed to think about what I actually care about, what makes me happy. And I was so fortunate that I was in a hospital bed next to this lady who started talking to me about Reiki.
Ooh.
And that was kind of my starting point of going down the sort of alternative slash self-development route.
Mhm.
Um, and it was so important for me because I felt like there was something bigger, but I never really got on well with religion.
Right. Hmm.
And so I think I was always seeking something to um help me understand these feelings that I had around the universe and energy and
Yes.
interconnectedness in the world. Um, and astrology is one of the ways that I have understood this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's looking at your challenges that you were facing, your place in the world, and how you understand and feel about yourself and others. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I've been working with astrology for 5 years professionally, learning about it previously in self-study and courses and things before that. And I was not always into astrology. So I only got into astrology in my 20s. I was not, I did not grow up on astrology. I grew up on religion and realized that was not working for me or probably a lot of the planet. And then I was really fascinated by astrology though, because of it's a system of personality. That's how I see it. And I thought it was incredible because I found it when I was also in like a dark night of the soul moment in my life where I was uh discovering that my career, exactly as you said, my identity and career that I had crafted, climbing my way up the corporate ladder was completely dissatisfying and unfulfilling. And it
Mm.
made me question everything. It made me question who I am, really, who am I? That
Yeah,
was my pervasive question was who am I? And I think a lot of people come to astrology with that question. They're asking, who am I? Sometimes they're asking what's wrong with me. I get a lot of people who are like, stuff's happening to me or things that I used to do are not working anymore. What's wrong?
yeah,
And so yeah, I do think a lot of people come to the system of astrology or to work with astrologers when they're in a moment of crisis or a moment of struggle or a moment of like, whew, like what's the confusion and what's happening. And I think that people also come to astrology to learn about number one, themselves, but number two, other people. And
mm,
that is something that when we look at the definition of narcissism from official sources that are not this initial list, I want to look at some other sources for how we understand narcissism. It is not at all concerned with other people. People who have the disorder, narcissistic personality
yeah,
disorder, have no interest in other people, what other people think, how they operate, unless it's how they can manipulate and use them. It's
yeah,
really a very self-focused, very, like only me matters, only my needs. I don't need to adjust myself for anyone. And they don't think they have a problem
no,
either. They don't think that the way that they're handling things is wrong. They think it's everyone else's problem. In my
yes,
experience working with hundreds of clients over the past 5 years, everyone is really wanting to have the best relationships possible. They
yeah,
just want to have mutually respectful, happy, enjoyable, fulfilling relationships. And they know without me telling them that in order to do that, they need to understand themselves and they need to understand other people. I pull up husbands' charts, children's charts, mother in law's charts, best friends' charts all the time for people because they're like, please help me understand them so that we can
yeah,
be more intimate and more close.
yeah. And you just would not be seeking that connection if you were truly sort of extremely narcissistic.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think what you're saying was perfectly summed up in this study that I found, where
Ooh, tell me.
um, she spoke to these people, and they basically said that astrology encourages shifting from a self-centered worldview to viewing oneself in relationship to a broader cosmic context, which is deeply humbling and aids participants in feeling less alone in their problems.
Mm. That's it. That's it. And I think that what you just said is so perfectly summarized. And I think that people who are outside the astrology community don't understand that. Like,
No.
they don't get it. And until you're inside and you can kind of like feel like it's a connection. It's a connection. It's a language that we speak. It's a connection. It's so fun. Anyone is welcome. It's this wonderful way of understanding the world, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the really interesting things with this study is they talk about whether it's an issue for the participants that there's no scientific evidence for astrology.
Mhm.
And the participants are basically saying, look, I don't need science. I know that everything is interconnected. And
Mm.
if everything is interconnected, of course, astrology is going to have an impact.
Mhm.
And quite right, they talk about the fact that majority of people who are into astrology are women. A majority of people who think
Yeah.
holistically are women.
Yes.
Um, and articles, I mean, some of the articles I've read are so like the language that they use is so disrespectful. But they
Oh, yeah.
talk natural beliefs being feminine and therefore inferring that the believers are less intelligent. And it's just this sort of
Bleh. I'm sorry.
yeah,
Like, this
I'm
is
just like
feminine rage, like volume up, because I'm so tired of this stuff. And it's something that's really pervasive, especially on social media right now, because the patriarchy is dying. Yes. We are hexing the patriarchy. And the result of this is that people are so scared who
yeah,
are invested in the patriarchy and it's serving them. They are so scared. And so what do? They're putting down things that women are like, things that
yeah.
make women confident, things that women are interested in, things that have nothing to do with them, right? They're like, oh, I don't understand this. This isn't for me. So I poo poo it. I think it means people are not smart or they're narcissists or whatever. Yeah, like I could rant on this all day.
And I mean, I'm a smart person,
Yeah,
right? I have done very well academically, and
same.
I still find astrology extremely complicated and difficult.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you have to be intelligent to understand it. To have the
I'd
level
love
of
to see them
understanding
try.
you have,
Mhm,
you
mhm.
have to have intelligence. There's just no way you would grasp it all if you weren't.
Absolutely. It's so complicated. And like, yeah, I have clients all the time. They're like, how do you, because it's a synthesis, it's a different way of intelligence that is not about, it's about synthesis. It's about bringing all these different things together to help to explain a situation, a personality, a relationship, a talent, a struggle, and it's such an incredible, oh, it's just such an incredible system. And it's really funny when people who don't know anything about it try to poo-poo it. So
Yeah.
I fully agree.
And I think one of the really interesting things as well is that astrology really allows you to reconnect with your intuition about yourself
Yes.
and others. And I think
Yes.
that's a powerful thing that, like you say, it scares people.
Like when
They're
you
like,
think
oh,
about,
it's woo woo. It's it's not real intuition. What's that sort of thing? And I'm like, no,
they're
it's
missing
a
out,
real
man.
thing.
Yeah, they're missing out. And when you learn about, let's give an example, like the moon sign. So when you learn about your moon sign in astrology, this really represents your emotional needs and what need in order to feel safe in a intimate relationship. And this is, as you said, about helping people to connect to their intuition, helping people to connect to their needs and advocate for their needs, and helping them in turn to understand why their partner, their child, their best friend is different and has different needs. And, one of my theories about the patriarchy is that the patriarchy thrives on homogeneity. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but they
Yeah,
want everything to be the same. They want everyone to have, the same understanding of, gender relationships, politics, right and wrong, religion, da 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 da. They want everything to be singing from the same hymn sheet, literally. And that what has actually been proven again and again and again through studies, like when I was in corporate, we looked at these studies when we were talking about diversity in the workplace. Diversity in every sphere of life, diversity of thought, diversity of, the technique, the way of being, culture, race, etc., gets better results. Every
Yes.
study says this, and it's wild to me that like the establishment is still fighting it. And I think that, there's a reason that for my business, my mantra is uniqueness is your superpower, because I believe that all of us are unique, and you
Mm.
cannot deny that, because we all have a different lived experience, but we also have uniqueness in our birth chart. We're going to express our chart in a unique way based on how we were raised, the conditions, who we are, and what we're passionate about. And I
Yeah,
think that is what's going to change and save the world.
I couldn't agree more.
Love it. So I know we're over time. So the last thing we wanted to talk about, and you tell me if you think we have time to do this now, was a little bit about the DSM-5 definition. I'd love to like read it really quickly, talk about like the disorder and the
Yeah,
specific.
I think that would be really helpful, because I think
Okay.
when people
Yeah.
make these sort of sweeping statements
Yeah.
about narcissism, they are talking about narcissistic personality
Yes.
disorder,
Yes.
and that's not at all what this study was about.
Yes.
Um, so I think it would be really interesting to sort of talk about that, and also what aspects of that we see or don't see in
Okay.
our practice.
Perfect. Let's do that. So, are you okay if I kind of kick that off and
Yeah,
then,
go for it.
okay. So, I have in front of me, did some research, our armchair detective research into this, because I'm not a, licensed psychologist. Like you have the license, you're in there, but I think it's really interesting. So the DSM is, I should define my terms. Oh, I don't even remember what it stands for. DSM, is it, I should have written this down in my notes. But it's basically the kind of codified like list of definitions of different personality and mental disorders. So,
Yeah.
things like Machiavellianism, things like being a psychopath, things like narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, all of those things, anxiety, depression, it's all defined in the DSM. It is an American, like, I guess you could say, document, that everyone refers to when they are doing diagnosis. And
So
yeah,
it's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders.
perfect. Thank you for that. I should have written down the name. Thank you. And there's different versions of it. And DSM-5 is the most recent version, which is from 2013/2015. I saw
Mm.
the dates. And so that is the moment when narcissistic personality disorder entered officially the DSM. It was not in there before. It was
Mhm.
something people talked about, as we mentioned earlier. 1898 is when the term first came in through the British physician, but it wasn't in the DSM-5. And so this is significant. Also, I have to say, there is some criticism of the DSM-5, specifically really broadening and expanding the definitions of a lot of personality and mental disorders, beyond kind of what people had expected. So there's also, there are also people who are like, we're not happy. And there was some controversy about this
Yeah.
version. So I just wanted to mention that as
So
well.
one of the main sort of problems with it
Yeah.
is that people are just saying that they're pathologizing life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like things like grief become depression. General sort of, stress and anxiety becomes an anxiety disorder.
Mm.
And those disorders exist, but
Yeah.
it's whether they exist to the extent that the manual says.
Mm. Yeah, it's really interesting. And for everything that we're like referencing today, like a lot of the things I'm talking about here, I looked at, Psychology Today, looked at the DSM-5 itself, Psychiatry Online, lots of different, very kind of official sources. So I just wanted to say that.
Mm.
Okay, so the definition in the DSM, I'm going to read it quickly. DSM-5, this is the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. And typically you would have, it says, a 5 or more of the following. So it's a pervasive pattern of grandiosity in fantasy and behavior, a need for admiration and a lack of empathy, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts. So number 1 is a grandiose sense of his self-importance, someone who exaggerates their achievements and talents, expects to be recognized as superior without commensurate achievements. Number 2 is preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. I think that one's kind of interesting because I feel like that's very much like manifestation community.
Yes.
Okay, number 3, believes that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high status people or institutions. Number 4 requires excessive admiration. We're already seeing in this list that like the verbiage is much more extreme
Yes.
and more negative, I would say, than the
Yeah.
verbiage that we went through earlier from the Swedish study.
Yeah.
Number 5 has a sense of entitlement, i.e. unreasonable expectation or of especially favorable treatment or automatic compliance with his or her expectations. Number 6 is interpersonally exploitative, takes advantage of others to achieve his or her own ends. Number 7 lacks empathy, is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and the needs of others. I mean, that's just like 0 of my clients or community. Like, it's none of this. Number 8 is often envious of others or believes that others are envious of him or her. And then number 9 shows arrogant, haughty behaviors and attitudes. This was reprinted from the American Psychiatric Association. So that's the definition of narcissistic personality disorder according to the DSM 5. That's what I was expecting.
Right. And I think that's what most people would think.
Yeah.
The idea of these sort of personality traits existing in everyone isn't necessarily a well-known,
Yeah.
know what the word would be, fact.
Yes. Yes.
Concept. Yeah, and I think that's why these sorts of statements are just silly.
Yeah. Yeah.
For lack of a better
Fully.
word.
There's yeah, and I think it really, so much of this to me, it's a lot of words, a lot of definitions. We talked about a lot of different aspects today, but I think a lot of it comes down to, do you have empathy for other people or not? You know, I have to shout out to this doctor. She's called the Life Doctor here in England. She is Dr. Supriya McKenna. She is a British medical doctor and an expert on narcissism. And she specifically has a practice where she advises legal, lawyers in divorce disputes. So, people are at their worst, like this is tough stuff. And she says, the definition of narcissistic personality disorder is fundamentally a condition of low empathy, where the person has a very limited ability to step into another person's shoes and feel their pain or joy or any other emotion. This means that narcissists relate to people on a very different level to an empathetic person. Essentially, they cannot deeply care about you other than in the context of what you can do for them. Confusingly, narcissists are usually able to feign empathy, but they don't feel it. And so, if you're wondering, listening to this podcast or this video, and you're worried and you're thinking, oh my God, am I a narcissist? Like, if I love astrology, if I want to learn about myself, if I believe that I am special and I deserve respect, if people compliment me and I maybe even have a secret desire to be famous one day, I want to just tell you, if you have a bone of empathy in your body, if you care about other people and how they feel, like, the answer is no. You don't have narcissistic personality disorder, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you're interested in astrology, you're new to astrology, and you see this sort of comment and you think, oh my gosh, like, this is not a safe place for me to be, please don't feel that way. That is not remotely my experience. Like, on my counselling diploma, when we did the astrology module, all of it actually, or the whole diploma, everyone was lovely, but the most lovely group of empathetic, kind, thoughtful people who literally just want to help other people feel better in their life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I fully agree. Of course, any industry is going to have, bad actors. Every industry will have people who are not there for the right reasons, who are kind of capitalizing on, something that people are passionate about for their personal gain, and who may have narcissistic personality disorder. But in my, experience, in your experience, meeting hundreds, if not thousands of people, I agree. I think that there is a deep sense of empathy that people have, and a deep love that we share for learning about other people that just could never be called narcissism. And yeah, and so that's really my conclusion. I think this is fascinating though as a topic, because it's
Mm.
something that a lot of people outside of astrology probably wonder about.
Yeah. And I think something, just to sort of finish off in terms of the research,
Yeah.
the scientific community is really, really biased against astrology.
Let's
Like,
call a spade, honey.
yeah. So, I mean, there was a study in 1970 where they sent out a paper
Mhm.
to 1,000 members of the American Psychological Association. And half of them, the outcome was positive in favor of astrology, and half of them, it was negative. And they were asked to basically, I don't know what the word would be. What's the word? Oh,
Like
I hate it.
comment,
Um,
critique.
critique. There we go. Thank you.
Mhm.
Critique the paper, and
Mhm.
it was exactly the same.
No way.
The words were exactly the same except for the conclusion, and the difference in the way that it was received and the critique was huge.
Wow. Mm,
Huge.
mm. So that shows you.
And there was
Yeah.
this interesting part. Additionally, they reported that some of the responses to the questionnaire included unsolicited commentary indicating strong affective reactions and prejudgments against astrology as a discipline.
Mm-hmm. So people saw the same study, different conclusion, and just because of their personal biases said that's wrong.
And they said it was, a poorly designed study. It was clearly sort of the limitations were, such a problem that you couldn't even call it a good study. Whereas in the other camp, they were like, yeah, it was really well written, the study was well designed, like.
Like face palm. This is just crazy. It's
So
like,
just take it with a pinch of salt and trust your
yeah,
intuition is
yes.
my advice.
Mhm. People like to act like it's like science versus astrology, and it's really not. It's opinion versus experience. No, just kidding. But it's just people are not as objective as they think they are.
They're
I,
not.
in this debate, am not objective at all. Like, I am absolutely on the side of astrology. I have had such positive experiences with it, and I was a skeptic for most of my life.
Mm.
And I have changed my mind because I've experienced it in life and I've seen it change people's lives for the better. But what bothers me is when people have such strong opinions when they have not even dipped a toe. They're
Yeah.
not involved, like they haven't tried it out. They've never gotten a reading from a professional. They are just closed. And I
Yeah.
think that the more that we have a society that is just closed to anything before you dive into it and learn a little bit, the less we're going to evolve and move on, and the less, kind of like you said, efficacious studies that we can actually have, because bias is just clouding everything.
Yes.
Mm. So good, Kate. Oh my gosh. I love this conversation.
Me
Thank
too.
you. Thank you for doing this with me. I know we went way over. I might see if I might split this into two, but I think it's worthwhile. I think, this is such a deep and profound and important conversation to have. And I'm so happy that I got to have it with you. Is there anything you want to kind of close on, or any final thoughts that you want to share?
Um, One of the things I wanted to talk about, and
Oh.
I won't talk about it for long, don't worry, is, is the way that I use astrology.
Okay.
Because I use it in quite a different way. Because what I find sometimes is people will come to counselling
Yes.
and they know they've got a problem, they know they're not feeling quite how they want to, but they don't really know what it is or how to express it or how to start.
Mm, okay. Yeah.
Where for me astrology shines, because I can have, you know, the chart in front of me, and I usually do more of an intuitive sort of reading on top of the basic reading that I do, because I'm nowhere near your level. And I go through it with them, and it just starts conversations, and it starts really important conversations that allows us to go down a road of healing that they may not otherwise have been able to go on. And
Mm.
this is where, for me, it's so profound. And that's, I just wanted to include that, because I think it's a slightly different approach that people
That's a
might not
really
get.
good, that's a good point. And it kind of goes to what I was saying about openness versus closeness. Astrology opens us. You know, the
Yes.
way that we do empowering astrology, it's not about putting someone in a box and telling them they have no options and no choice. It's
Not at
about empowering the individual to learn, evolve, grow, and trust themselves
yes.
and open the conversation. So
Yeah.
yeah, I hope that anyone listening to this, you know, feels inspired to learn more. I hope that, you know, if you're anti-astrology, maybe this would open your mind a little bit to the possibilities and how it's supported other people and our personal experiences. And yeah, let's just go out there and be more open. I think, you
Mm.
know, if anyone has any other thoughts of any other studies they want us to look at, let us know. This was a really, really juicy conversation. So thank you.
You.
I love it. Thank you, Kate. All right, we'll say goodbye for now, but make sure that you know, like, subscribe, follow for more. There's going to be so much more of these juicy conversations coming up.
I
Bye.
can't wait to hear what everyone thinks.
Agreed. Agreed. Where do you come down? Are astrology lovers narcissists or not? Let us know.
Yeah.